Well, good morning from day 2 here at Snetterton for the Ferrari Challenge UK. My name is Amanda Stretton. Now, yesterday, if you were able to join us, we saw an incredible race between championship leader Andrew Morrow and Gilbert Yates. Now, Gilbert started in pole. Andrew gave a masterclass on how to overtake on this incredibly challenging circuit. Now that was what was happening at the front in Trofeo Pirelli. Down in Coprachel, Mike Dewhurst, again, a man who has not been in full fighting form, took the spoils. Is he going to do the same again today and make it 2 out of 2? Well, qualifying is about to take part. The clouds have suddenly come over. It's got a little bit windy, which is going to cause the drivers all sorts of challenges. Less challenge, though, than we had yesterday, where it was raining. So we're looking forward to an exciting session. So let's go up to the tower where we've got our 2 fantastic commentators who've got full view of the whole circuit, Mark Werrell and Jack Werrell.
Thanks, Amanda. Yep, so it is rather overcast, it's rather blustery, but those rain clouds that were in the distance and threatened to upset qualifying yesterday are long gone. We've got 30 minutes of qualifying to look forward to. That will set the grid for round 6 of the 2024 championship, which means when we finished yesterday's race, we got to the halfway point of the 2024 championship season. As I say, still a little bit breezy out there. If anything, Jack, I would say it's slightly breezier than it was for qualifying yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely, and we may start to see that affect some of the qualifying laps. Some drivers, if they get caught in a bit of a crosswind or they get caught out heading into a braking zone, 30-kilometre wind speed that we've got here this morning at Snetterton. So drivers will have to be careful of that. And bearing in mind we're now into the latter stages of the season, or the final half of the season, the championship is closer than ever.
It is closer than ever, and Snetterton is a great place to get to the halfway point of our championship season as we work our way around the UK, starting with our first race that was at Brands Hatch. Then we went to Alton Park. We're here at Snetterton, and then we'll go to Donington Park and Silverstone for the final 2 rounds of the 2024 championship. So the cars are getting ready in the pit lane, and whilst we are waiting for the cars to be released out onto the circuit, let's look back at some of the highlights from day 1 yesterday. So some great action from yesterday. The cars are getting ready in the pit lane, but what does the Snetterton 300 look like? We jump on board the number 29 HR Owen car, Pranav Van Gala, for an onboard lap. 6th gear over the start-finish line, up towards Ritchie's, back down to 5th, turn in, over 100 miles an hour. Make sure you're on the gas at the 2nd apex and stay in 5th on the run down to Wilson. Deep brake down to 2nd gear, apex late into the right-hand hairpin, so you straighten out the exit, and then as you come out of the corner, get back to the right-hand side, you move up to 5th as you head up towards Palmer. Quick brake, long apex, remain in 5th gear all the way through the left-hander at Palmer, as Pranav Van Gala will now just work his way past a little bit of traffic, Peter Hunter's car on the right-hand side. Up to 6th as you head down towards Agostini, onto the brakes, down to 3rd, start to creep over towards the left-hand side in the braking zone, but again, a late apex so that you can straighten out the exit. From 3rd, it's up to 5th now as you head up towards Hamilton. Quick brake for Hamilton, apex at the tyre stack on the inside, use the curb on the exit, and then go back to the left-hand side and down to 3rd gear for Oggies. Tight to the curb and hold the middle of the road at exit as you head out of Oggies, up to 4th into Williams. A quick dab at Williams just to get the nose into the corner and concentrate on getting a good exit coming out of the corner, carry all of that speed down the Bentley straight. From 4th, up to 5th, up to 6th, And as you head underneath the vehicle bridge, it's going to be a big dab on the brakes underneath the vehicle bridge, down to 4th, roll back off the brake, but then go back onto the brake again. Another quick dab down to 3rd for Nelson. Avoid the sausage curb on the inside. Accelerate your way up towards the bomb hole. You'll take that in 4th gear, a slight lift just to turn in, and again a little bit of traffic to deal with for Pranav van Gala. And that was Hamandri Pillai. He's up to 5th gear round through Coram, balancing the car on the throttle, staying tight to the right-hand side in the braking area, and increase the braking pressure to keep the car settled. Down to 3rd for Murray's. Concentrate on the exit, and again carry all of that speed up the centre straight. And that is a lap of the Snetterton 300 circuit with the HR Owen car of Pranav van Gala, the number 29 car. So the cars now, Jack, out on circuit for qualifying. We saw conditions yesterday in qualifying that were wet to start with. They were still wet at the end, but it did dry out, which meant that the last lap in qualifying was the most important. Here today, we're going to see something a little bit different, because odds are what they'll do is they'll go out on a set of used tyres for the first part of this qualification session, just to bed the car in and get used to it again and blow away any cobwebs, and then they'll bolt a brand new set of Pirelli slicks on, go back out and really push for the time.
Yeah, you may see some banker times being set early, not necessarily as competitive as you'd expect to see them, but just to get a couple of times on the board and get that car within a window that the driver's happy with, and make sure everything still feels as it did, or maybe even better than it did yesterday, before, as you say, they'll come in and get a new set of Pirellis all round and back out there and really start to push. But one thing you do have to bear in mind, if you do want those fresh tyres, you need to give yourself enough time, almost in lieu, to make sure that you've got, 10 minutes, because you'll need 2, maybe 3 laps to get the tyres, get the brakes back up to temperature, because obviously they're brand new tyres, they don't come out of a tyre oven, they go on cold, and then you can start pushing for that time. And you need to make sure then you've got enough time for maybe 2 quick laps, two or 3 really quick push laps. At the moment, Pranav van Gala, however, he's leading the train. He's just nipped past Andrew Morrow, and he wants to be the first one to break the beam.
It's a long old outlap, isn't it, here at Snetterton, as you say. So, yeah, by the time you've done your outlap and you've done 2 or 3 flying laps, and yeah, that is the best part of 10 minutes done and dusted. So they'll probably break this qualification session into 2, and we're about to see over the start-finish line heads Pranav van Gala. He's the first to head on to what will be a flying lap in reality. Andrew Morrow follows him through, so in towards the right-hander. That's the car that we did the onboard lap with, the number 29 green HR Owen car. And then from there onto the brakes and down in towards the braking area for the Wilson hairpin. The car moving around under braking there in the hands of the Trofeo Pirelli competitor. Circuit's broken into 3 separate sectors, so we get times at 3 separate points around the circuit. We get the time as they come over the start-finish line, which is the total time to complete the lap, but we also get an indication as how they're getting on through the first third of the lap, which is where Pranav van Gala is heading towards now. There's a beam that he will break, and through the first third of the lap, he has posted a 38.825 second first sector. Then we also get another beam that they'll break as they head all the way along the Bentley Straight underneath the vehicle bridge. That gives us the time for Sector 2, and then we get a separate time for Sector 3, add the 3 together, that gives us a lap time. So it does allow us, Jack, to pick out how they're getting on midway around the lap.
Yeah, and it also gives us an idea on maybe a driver's sort of strengthened part of the circuit, maybe not so strong part of the circuit. If they make a small mistake or they're just not quite comfortable, say, through the final couple of corners, especially Coram, a very challenging long right-hander, as we saw from the onboard lap. If the driver isn't quite as confident, you can see that. It will be shown in the sector time that is one of their usually slower sectors than everybody else. But for the moment, Gilbert Yates is fastest overall through Sector 1 with a 37.221. That could not mean anything, because we've seen him into the 36. We've seen a couple of drivers into the 35s in terms of Sector 1 as well. So it's all down to just keeping an eye on that timing screen as the time whittles away. We're at 25.5 minutes of this session still to go. We'll see what the drivers can do, but for the moment, Gilbert Yates leading the charge, and Pranav van Gala, I mean, he's bringing the fight to him today, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect the cars to be down in the 1-minute 53s, possibly by the time they bolt on their new set of Pirelli tyres. So these are just banker laps at the moment, probably on an older set that they utilised yesterday, or a carryover set as they'd also be known. Pranav van Gala over the start-finish line, 2 minutes 1.568. That's just the first flying lap, so everything is still getting up to temperature at the moment. The car with the Dayglow flash is about to flash over the start-finish line now is Gilbert Yates. He gets straight away sub 2 minutes, 1-minute 59.199 for yesterday's runner-up in the race. Having qualified on pole position, he saw a bit more drop-off in terms of the pace of his car relative to Andrew Morrow. So Gilbert Yates, I think, arguably has had the pace, hasn't he? He was quickest in free practice 1 and free practice 2. He was quickest in qualifying yesterday, but the longer race pace just didn't quite have the car underneath him that he needed.
No, we could see just how he's even sliding the car in qualifying on the run through Palmer. The tail end of the car just wagging around as he's trying to get on power. Very Gilbert Yates-esque by the looks of it. He knows how to push a car just to the limit and maybe a couple of little bits beyond.
I love watching Gilbert Yates race here at Snetterton yesterday, whether it be in the dry or in the wet. He was just brilliant to watch. You can see again there the car moving around. I didn't even know there was a bump there on the inside at Hamilton. He found it, and again you could see how much it affected the car.
Yeah, and the reason why it affected the car that much is because the car was already almost on the edge with Gilbert Yates behind the wheel. So it's nice to see Gilbert Yates yesterday fighting away with Andrew Murray, because visually you could see Andrew was slightly smoother on the controls, which hampered him at the start of the race, but then it came back to him come the end of the race. So seeing all those dynamics play out, not just with the car but with the tyres and the driver, really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I was chatting to the driver coach for Andrew Murray, Johnny Kane, over breakfast this morning, and he said exactly the same. They got their car set up so they knew it was going to take a few laps for it to come in, but they knew then that they would have some pace and they wouldn't see the same level of drop-off as maybe others were doing. So yeah, it absolutely worked for them yesterday. Gilbert Yates will have worked with his pro overnight, which is Tom Fleming, who is still recovering following his incident at Mazzano in the Ferrari 296 in the GT World Challenge. Good to see Tom almost back to full fitness now, but he's coaching Gilbert Yates and the two of them working beautifully well together. Gilbert Yates back over the start-finish line, 1 minute 55.972 that time through, so on to provisional pole position and 0.3 of a second quicker than the man who's second quickest at the moment, which is Pranav Vangala.
Yeah, and all of that time was found in Sector 3, because Pranav Vangala has the fastest Sector 1, the fastest Sector 2, and the only one he doesn't have is Sector 3, and that's because that's gone the way of Gilbert Yates by 0.6 of a second. So Gilbert Yates so much quicker through Sector 3 that time through. I've got a feeling Pranav is slowly starting to unlock a bit more pace from what he had yesterday.
I hope so. Pranav Vangala was good value yesterday. Darren Howell resides in the pit lane at the moment. Engineers just working with his car. I can see in the background of the shot Jack Mitchell, who is his driver coach, was briefly chatting to Amanda Stretton down there. And again, oh wow, very sideways for Hamandra Pillai. We saw him have a spin there yesterday when he was in the race. Well, that was pretty much on the edge of adhesion again there, wasn't it? The car moving around underneath him, and Pranav Vangala pushing hard in qualifying.
Yeah, it's nice to know that Hamandra Pillai just doesn't, it's not affecting him from yesterday, that small mistake there. And we thought, oh, well, it was just a mistake, but he just caught a slight bit of damp tarmac that was residing there from qualifying in the rain earlier on in the day, and apparently he caught out Peter Hunter. I think both of us missed that. Yeah, it shows that just even whilst the circuit is dry and just a bit more drying, I think that small bit of that small bit of water that was just sat there on the surface, it caught a couple of drivers out. Yeah,
so yeah, right. Hamandra Pillai, I think I said Pranav Vangala, but Hamandra Pillai driving the Pink Machine, the newly liveried car for this weekend. So onto the brakes, through Brundle, through Nelson. Hamandra Pillai currently third quickest of the Trofeo Pirelli cars, sixth quickest overall, but through both Sector 1 and Sector 2 has gone quicker than he has previously gone, so should be on for an improvement as long as he's nice and neat and tidy through Coram and into the tricky braking area at Murray's. You're still trying to turn right whilst you're trying to get on the brakes and get ready to turn left in towards Murray's. So you're asking the car to do things it really doesn't want to do, but it's a brilliant part of the circuit if you get it right. So Hamandra Pillai about to head over the start-finish line this time through, currently sixth, and as he goes through, he goes third quickest with a 1 minute 56.990. Good improvement there, still with plenty of time of the session remaining, 21 minutes.
Yeah, quicker than Pranav Vangala, the car in front in Sector 1, absolutely matched him through Sector 2 and Sector 3. That's where Hamandra just lost out very slightly. You've got to think if he's matched or quicker than Pranav Vangala through Sector 1, that's when we saw the car all out of shape coming out of Palmer. So I think there's still plenty more pace there into the pit lane for a new set of tyres. That is the number 22 machine of Gary Redman. So Gary Redman getting a new set of sticker Pirellis. I think, yeah, you can see the sticker on the underside of the tyre. So we could see those times just continue to fall. 1:55 on worn tyres. That's not a bad lap at all from Gilbert Yates and presumably everybody else as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, everybody will have gone out on a set of worn, and now they'll be starting to go through a similar process to we're seeing happen now with Gary Redman's car. A new set of Pirellis being bolted onto that one, and he'll go out and have another run. Andrew Morrow is out on circuit, yesterday's race winner. He's just about to flick his way through the left-hander at Hamilton now. Claimed his second win of the championship season yesterday. He is the reigning champion as well, of course. And again, another thing that we didn't mention yesterday, but is worth alluding to, because again, over breakfast, chatting to Johnny Kane, Andrew Morrow is each weekend that he raced in Ferrari Challenge UK, having to readapt again because he's also racing the 296 in the European Championship this year. So he's having to switch modes again from 296 mode to 488 mode. They are very different cars, and it does take a little bit of adaptation. Yeah,
and I've heard that the 488 is a little more clean cut, for lack of a better term. It will not necessarily let you know exactly what it wants to do when it wants to do it. You really have to drive that car, and the 296 you do have to drive that car, but apparently it's a little more driver friendly, and it will react to you in a slightly different way. And of course the tyres might be exactly the same tyres, but in terms of how the car responds to the grip levels, that could be completely different. And for Andrew Morrow, I'd imagine it's a busy job, but he doesn't seem to be getting any slower whilst doing all that adapting.
So over the start finish line he's about to come, and what can he do this time through? Andrew Morrow, he gets himself provisionally onto the front row of the grid. He was 9th, he's now 2nd quickest in qualifying with a 1 minute 55.535, and that is now 6/10 just under of a second away from Gilbert Yates, who last time through the provisional pole sitter went even quicker into the 1 minute 54s, 1 minute 54.976. I said I thought we'd be in the 1 minute 53s in qualifying, with Gilbert Yates now being in the 54s and on what we assume is a used set of tyres. I think, yeah, somewhere in the 53s should be a pole position, shouldn't it?
Yeah, 1 minute 53.427 was Andrew Morrow's fastest time from the race yesterday. So let's see what he can do in terms of qualifying. The gap that separated Gilbert Yates and Andrew Morrow yesterday in qualifying, obviously Gilbert Yates on pole position was just under 1 full second. I've got a feeling today it will be a bit closer, because obviously the pair of them have sized up Snetterton now. They know exactly what they need to do, and Andrew Morrow, it's not like he's coming to Snetterton for the first time. Neither is Gilbert Yates. Of course, Gilbert Yates has raced here in other GT machinery. Andrew Morrow, he went brilliantly well here last year in Ferrari Challenge UK, winning both races. So it really is two vastly experienced drivers fighting it out over provisional pole position. And I want to say, what's more impressive as well, I would say Pranav Vangala, he's only a 1/4 of a second away from Andrew Morrow.
He is, yeah. We're at the moment looking at what's going on with Peter Hunter's car as he turns his way through Hamilton and on towards Oggies, the number 82 Stratstone Manchester car, who had a spin yesterday, did Peter Hunter. In fact, a couple of spins he was telling me in the race. One we caught on camera, the other one we didn't. Mike Dewhurst, yesterday's winner in Copa Shell, sitting in the pit lane. His pro driver coach, Ed Bridle, with the headphones on, just chatting to him and relaying all of the information that he needs. And that's another dynamic I love to see in Ferrari Challenge UK. It's the pro drivers, the driver coaches working with their for want of a better term, to bring on their driving. It's a fundamental part of what Ferrari Challenge UK is about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see that they will all speak, again, sort of different languages, because you may find that as a pro you need to communicate certain information to your driver in a slightly different way. So it also almost pushes those pro drivers to almost adapt to the driver that they're coaching. Back over the line goes Mike Dewhurst. This is, I think, his outlap on a fresh set of tyres. Yes, it is. So let's see what Mike Dewhurst can do now he's got those brand new sticker Pirellis on the car.
Well, Mike Dewhurst was a driver who qualified. Oh, sorry, that's Gary Redman, isn't it? It's Gary Redman over the start finish line. He qualified on pole position yesterday in Copa Shell, so he'll be hoping for good things again today at the wheel of the number 22 car, representing Greypool Nottingham. And come the race yesterday, it didn't quite happen for him to the same degree. He did finish on the podium, but having started from pole in Copa Shell, he finished 3rd, didn't he? So I didn't get the chance to catch up with him and see whether he was A, happy with that, or B, thought he'd left a little bit on the table and was a bit disappointed. I genuinely don't know.
No, I know the only person I've really spoken to is Steve Dobson. He was out this morning. He knows the conditions. He was testing the Ferrari 296 Challenge car that Ferrari Challenge UK will take on board for next year, whilst it is being deployed elsewhere out in Europe and the Americas as well. But obviously he knows the conditions, but then he will have to do a slight bit of adapting. Back out of the pit lane goes Pranav Vangala on sticker Pirelli, so brand new tyres for him. So to Darren Howell, I think, is going out on another used set of tyres, and Andrew Morrow into the pit lane, potentially for another set of boots as well.
Yeah, so those are new front Pirellis that have been put onto his car. So Andrew just sitting patiently in the pit lane area, waiting for the team to go to work and waiting for the thumbs up that he can head back out there onto circuit. And as I suggested at the beginning, 30-minute session, I think they might break it into 2 halves, and here we are, 15 minutes in, and most of the cars now are if they haven't already, swapping onto a brand new set of tyres, including, very shortly, the number 8 car of Robert Rees, who still continues to lead the Copa Shell Championship, might have finished 2nd in Copa Shell yesterday, having led the race for a good period of time at the wheel of the number 8 blue car, but it was his teammate, wasn't it, that pipped him in the end. It was a Dick Lovett-Swindon 1-2 in Copa-Shell. It was a Charles Hurst 1-2 in Trofeo Pirelli yesterday.
Yeah, if you're the dealership representative from either Charles Hurst or Dick Lovett-Swindon, you'll be having a very good day indeed. But Robert Rees, for me, yesterday, it was an oh, what could have been sort of situation. The start was fabulous. He started in something like 5th place in class, and immediately, before we even got to the Sector 1 beam, was into the lead of the class. And then he was already fighting away with Hamandra Pillai and I think Pranav Vangala as well in the early stages. So Robert Rees, definitely one to watch throughout not only this weekend, but the rest of this season as well.
Yep, so onto the brakes, down in towards Brundle and Nelson goes Robert Rees. He's currently 2nd quickest of the Copa-Shell cars. However, he is slightly slower through both the 1st and the 2nd sectors this time through. So he may well opt to come into the pits at the end of this one and then pop on those new tyres, because I don't think he's been in yet for a new set of Pirellis to be put on. Out of the pit lane goes Steve Dobson. So number 74 car now back out for another run in the remaining 13 minutes of this session. Let's see what he might be able to do. In the pit lane, we've got Gilbert Yates, who is the provisional pole sitter. Also in the pit lane is Hamandra Pillai, who is provisionally going to line up on the outside of that front row of the grid. So those are the only 2 cars, I think, that are in the pit lane at the moment. Everybody else is either on flying laps, Jack, or is on an out lap.
Yeah, I'm also looking as well. Robert Rees, I think, has been into the pit lane by the looks of it. He came in, yes, he came in and was stationary for about 2 minutes 20, as was most of the others, following the trend, really, there is Robert Rees. So I think, again, he can extract a bit more time and close down, the 2.3 seconds that he needs to take away Copa-Shell provisional pole position from Peter Hunter. And we saw Peter yesterday with some spirited driving, very quick indeed, very confident on the brakes, and I think today he will want to make amends for maybe some shortcomings yesterday.
So back out of the pit lane goes Hamandra Pillai, as we still keep an eye on what Steve Dobson is out there doing on circuit. I think Gary Redmond could be one to watch as well, but he's about to flash his way over the start-finish line. And what might he be able to do? He goes to the lead of Copa-Shell, provisional pole in Copa-Shell, 5th quickest for the number 22 car. So that was all done through the 2nd and the 3rd sectors. Steve Dobson, in the meantime, at the wheel of the number 74 car, is threading his way all the way along the Bentley Straight, and his sector time at the moment is for an out lap. So he is on his out lap, isn't he, having just come out of the pit lane. But look in the background, somebody that's on a flying lap is catching him, which is Robert Rees.
Keep an eye on Robert Rees and keep an eye on the timing screen. Let's see what he can do about carving his way up through the order. It's a personal fastest sector 1 and 2 from Robert Rees. We've got Gilbert Yates, Hamandra Pillai and Andrew Morrow currently on out laps, and also just working his way out of the way. Very sort of heads up driving there from the number 74 of Steve Dobson. Immediately saw Robert Rees on his way and jumped out of the way. But Robert Rees, I think this is going to be a quick lap indeed.
It does. It looks like a very quick lap. Mike Dewhurst over the start-finish line. He has just completed an out lap at the wheel of the number 78 car. The car that's behind him on circuit is the blue car, which is Robert Rees, and we think he might be about to pick up the pole position in Copa-Shell if he sticks with the lap. Through he comes over the start-finish line, and yeah, he goes to provisional pole in Copa-Shell, number 8, Robert Rees. So kept an eye on that lap. Now, Mike Dewhurst, now that he's done his just about to complete his out lap, he'll be pushing on this lap, Jack. Mike Dewhurst claimed the win in Copa-Shell yesterday. He's just had the new tyres fitted to his car. He'll be looking to really try and set the sectors alight, because he'll be heading through the completion of the 1st sector in any second now. Yeah,
so over the beam he goes, Mike Dewhurst, with the personal fastest sector 1, a 36.860 compared to Robert Rees's last time through, a 1:36.490. So there's around about 4 tenths for Mike Dewhurst to find. But again, he's only given the tyres 1 lap to warm up, and whilst the Pirellis do warm up very quickly and immediately give you some good performance, he might just want another exploratory lap before he pushes harder, because he's got the time to do it. 10.5 minutes of the session to go.
Yeah, so all looks nice and neat and tidy at the moment. Out of Williams and onto the Bentley Straight. It's at the other end of the Bentley Straight where we'll get an indication as to what the 2nd sector looks like from Mike Dewhurst. And as he heads down in towards that 2nd sector, he needs to be sort of around 41 seconds, something like that. He's 41.2, so he's still on a reasonable lap at the moment. He's 10th quickest, but they should see him, I'd have thought, certainly maybe 3rd, possibly 2nd in Copa-Shell. I don't think he'd go to Copa-Shell pole on this, his first flying lap on those new tyres, as you say. It'll be maybe the lap he's about to start any second. That might be the one that's well worth watching even more. But this still, without question, is a tidy lap. So onto the brakes at Murray's, turns his way through the final corner. What's the lap shaping up like, Jack?
Let's see, finds the car out of the final corner. The car squats down, up through the gears he will go, and he should slowly start to edge his way up through the order. So currently P10 and immediately up to the front row provisionally in Copa-Shell. That's 6th overall with a 1 minute 56.781. Good lap from Mike Dewhurst. We are also seeing purple sectors from Pranav Van Gala and Andrew Morrow. I think Trofeo Pirelli is far from settled as well. I
think that's far from settled. And Copa-Shell at the moment, overall, front row of the grid for Gary Redman. He's got other cars that are on quicker laps coming up behind him, but we'll wait and see. And now it is Pranav Van Gala that heads towards provisional pole position. The number 29 HR Owen car, 3.5 tenths of a second quicker than Gilbert Yates, 1 minute 54.634. So Pranav Van Gala onto provisional pole position. Darren Howell over the start-finish line, being chased around by Steve Dobson. They are 9th and 10th respectively at this stage, but another car we need to keep an eye on this lap is Andrew Morrow, absolute best through the first sector, quicker than he's previously gone through the second sector, yesterday's race winner.
Yes, almost a full second quicker than Pranav Van Gala went through sector 1, and he's matched him through sector 2. We could see Andrew Morrow not only onto provisional pole, but by quite some margin, and let's see what Darren Howell can do as he's picking his way through Palmer. He's got plenty of time to find on the board, so we'll see how he can string a lap together. He is slowly starting to chip away as he breaks the beam through sector 1, a personal fastest sector time, but he's also got Stephen Dobson sat behind him. Over the line goes Andrew Morrow. Do we see him to the top of the times? Do we ever? 1.3 seconds clear of Pranav Van Gala, 1 minute 53.290. Good lap.
Yeah, good lap from him, but now Pranav Van Gala has gone a tenth of a second quicker through the first sector, and I think that lap time was disallowed for the number 1 car of Andrew Morrow. Yeah, lap time disallowed for track limits, so that doesn't count. Pranav Van Gala goes back towards provisional pole position. We're still keeping an eye on what's going on for the number 5 car in the hands of Darren Howell, but it looks as though for the moment, yeah, quicker through the first sector. What can he do through the second sector? Is he going to be quicker than he's previously gone? We'll find out as he breaks the beam down at the bottom of the Bentley Straight. Yep, quicker through the second sector as well, but we've got to change for pole again.
Yeah, Gilbert Yates now onto provisional pole position, a 1 minute 53.696, only 2 tenths off his fastest lap that he set in the race yesterday, and that was with a personal best sector 1 and 2 and an overall best sector 3. Pranav Van Gala this time through. Let's see what he can do on the run through sector 2. Sector 3 not quite as quick from Pranav Van Gala in terms of sector times in the middle sector, but overall it all strung together nicely, didn't it? A 1 minute 53.442 puts him on provisional pole position. Immediately responding is Gilbert Yates, an overall fastest through sector 1 again.
Yep, so again, the provisional pole just keeps bouncing around from one driver to the other. We also need to keep an eye on what Andrew Morrow is doing, because he had, remember, briefly put that car on pole position only for the lap to be taken away because of track limits. So Andrew Morrow, yesterday's race winner and the reigning champion, and the championship leader also in Trofeo Pirelli, is only 6th quickest at the moment, and his main championship rival, Gilbert Yates, heads down along the bottom of the Bentley Straight and has just set an absolute best first sector, followed by an absolute best second sector. So Gilbert Yates, if he can string the final sector together, should be good to head towards provisional pole position with 6.5 minutes remaining. Back over the start-finish line comes Andrew Morrow. If that lap is going to remain good, it sees him on the outside of the front row of the grid, misses out on pole position by 23 thousandths of a second from the number 29 car of Pranav Van Gala, who still clings onto pole.
Yeah, and it may become a harder job to get onto the front row, because Gilbert Yates is just coming towards the start-finish line now, breaks the beam. Does he go to the top? Yes, he does. A 1 minute 52.795. Overall fastest sector 1 and 2. Sector 3 he let a little bit go, but what, that's 6 tenths on provisional pole now for Gilbert.
That is the fastest lap that we've seen for a Ferrari all weekend here. So because of the mixed conditions yesterday, that's the reasoning for some of it, but no, that is a blisteringly good lap. I thought we'd be in the 53s for qualifying. A 52, that is a really impressive lap.
And it's a fair way into a 52, isn't it? Over 2 tenths into the 1 minute 52s for Gilbert Yates, so we could still see further improvements from Pranav Van Gala and Andrew Morrow, and that may force Gilbert Yates' hand to push just slightly harder again. 5.5 minutes of the session remaining. In terms of Copa-Shell, it is still Gary Redman on provisional pole in that class, 1 minute 54.906 for Gary Redmond. Mike Dewhurst, he's only 4/10 away, 5/10 away. If he can find that half a second that he needs, we could see him onto provisional pole in Coperchel.
So Andrew Morrow quicker than he's previously been in the first sector, quicker than he's previously been in the second sector, but overall he's about 3/10 down on the kind of times that Gilbert Yates has been doing 2/3 of the way through the lap, and Gilbert Yates is out there on another blisteringly good lap again this time through. Absolute best first sector for the provisional pole sitter. So Andrew Morrow here I think might find himself head up onto the front row of the grid. He only needs to improve by 24 thousandths of a second to better the time that's been popped in by the number 29 car of Pranav Van Gala, who is going slightly slower on this lap than his previous best. So Andrew Morrow should be flashing his way over the start-finish line any second now. And as he comes through, is he going to head up onto the front row of the grid? Yes is the answer, and misses out on pole position by 2/1000ths of a second from Gilbert Yates. Wow, that is the blink of an eye, but Gilbert Yates is out there on a quick lap, Jack. Absolute best first sector, absolute best second sector.
Yeah, not by a small margin either for Gilbert Yates. Let's see what he can do about defending that provisional pole position. Over the line goes Samantha Pillai. Do we see him climb through the order? No, we don't. Yes, we do actually, but Gilbert Yates, he does extend his provisional pole margin by almost a quarter of a second now. 1 minute 52.580 for him. Qualifying has never really been closer throughout all of this weekend. Hamandra Pillai now joins his Trofeo Pirelli classmates, and Pranav Van Gala are all kinds of crossed up on the exit of Brundle and Nelson, so he's pushing for more time as well.
And what's happening in Coperchel, because we've not really touched on that much, it's still Gary Redmond that leads Coperchel qualifying at the moment, 5th quickest overall for the number 22 car, but he's in the pit lane, and with 4 minutes to go, if he wants to do another lap, he's got to get out there. 4/10 of a second back from him is Mike Dewhurst, 2/10 of a second back from that is Robert Rees, 4/10 of a second back from that is Peter Hunter. We've just had a shuffle there, haven't we? Robert Rees has gone quicker than Mike Dewhurst, so he moves up to second in Coperchel.
Yeah, and Mike Dewhurst now only just over 2/10 away from Gary Redmond, so Gary Redmond may be wondering whether he came into the pit lane slightly early, or does he now need to get out of the pit lane to secure another lap. But Gilbert Yates still pushing on, not quite as quick through sector 1. Same goes for Andrew Morrow, same goes for Pranav Van Gala. Have they reached that point now where they're dangerously close to the limit? They just can't extract any more time out of this, but it's so close between Gilbert Yates and Andrew Morrow, only 2/10 of a second, and you put that in race conditions, as you say, blink of an eye.
I'm looking forward to this race. Qualifying has been brilliant in these consistent conditions that we've had today, whereas yesterday it was very wet to start with and slowly dried through the session, but it's remained nice and consistent all the way through this one. Robert Rees still pressing on at the wheel of the number 8 car, representing Dick Lovett Swindon, the man who leads Coperchel Championship standings coming into this weekend. He, however, is slightly slower through the first sector than he has previously been. He is only second quickest in Coperchel at the moment. Looks as though Gary Redmond could potentially be heading towards 2 Coperchel pole positions, and his qualifying is done, because with 2.5 minutes remaining, he's in the pit lane and out of the car.
Yeah, that's a show of confidence, isn't it, for Gary Redmond? Straight out of the car, tapped on the back by the team members. Also into the pit lane comes Andrew Morrow, so he doesn't believe he can improve anything further. But Gilbert Yates, oh, he can, can't he? He's just extended that pole position margin to almost half a second, 1 minute 52.302, and that was all done in the final sector, Mark.
Yeah, so 1 minute 52.3, so that is at least probably a good 3/4 of a second quicker than I anticipated pole position would be. So Gilbert Yates absolutely on it, and well done to Andrew Morrow, also just dipping into the 1 minute 52s as well. So Gilbert Yates, I think, is probably done now. One final roll of the dice has just taken place. Looks as though he is surely heading towards pole position, because sector times for everybody else starting to drop off a little bit. There's one car that's still improving its sector time, and that's in 4th place, Amanda Pillai.
Yeah, and Mike Dewhurst just over the line as well. He's managed to swap around with Peter Hunter and then swap back. So Mike Dewhurst remains on the inside of the second row provisionally, having just swapped with Peter Hunter. A 1 minute 55.316 for them. Peter Hunter, what can he do in response? Picks his way through and past Gilbert Yates on the way into Oggies, and the brakes will be glowing down through a couple of gears, as we saw on board with Pranav Van Gala. Keep the car in the middle of the road. One of the most important corners, very aggressive on the way in at Williams, because that leads onto the Bentley straight, where you can just hemorrhage time if it was a slightly poor exit. A minute of the session to go. We might just squeeze another lap out of this one, Peter Hunter. Let's see what he can do. Through sector 1 was quicker than he's gone so far. Through sector 2, not quite as quick. quick as I think he would have liked, and into the very tricky technical section at Brundle and Nelson, where the car's balance is really asked questions of. Out of there on the short burst up towards the bomb hole, where you've got the slight compression at the apex, which does help draw the car in, but then it falls away on the exit through Coram, the long right-hander, where you're asking so much of the outside, the left-hand side tyres, and then you've got to just slowly increase that pressure on the brakes, get the car slowed down, pitch it in for the apex out of Murray's. Let's see what he can do about getting onto the inside of the second row, maybe onto the front row, Mark.
Yeah, it's been a tidy lap from Peter Hunter. Might have given away a bit of time in the middle sector, but on the whole, I think he could be on for improvement here as he comes over the start-finish line. Peter Hunter does improve the time, but he doesn't improve his position. 1 minute 55.716 is still quicker than the number 82 car from Stratstone Manchester has gone in the past, but it still keeps him 8th quickest overall and 4th quickest of the Copa Shell cars at this stage. We've still got out there the pink machine as well, Hamandra Pillai in this newly liveried car, and again you can see him just sliding the car around through Palmer. So that's where he had the spin yesterday, but he seems to thoroughly enjoy that part of the circuit. The movement in the car, beautiful to see. Yeah,
and again, it's very Gilbert Yates-esque. It doesn't look out of control, but it's clearly not 100% under his spell. Pranav Van Gala over the line doesn't improve upon his time and will be one of the first cars to take the checkered flag. Hamandra Pillai now heading in towards Oggies. What can he do in terms of improving upon the times that he's already set? Not quite as quick through sector 1, but still a fairly competitive time. It's made his job slightly harder, but if he can pick up some small improvements, we may see him edge just that bit closer to Pranav Van Gala.
So Hamandra Pillai down the long Bentley straight. Into the pit lane has come Gilbert Yates, busy chatting to his pro driver coach Tom Fleming. So for Hamandra Pillai, slower through the first and the second sectors, so it doesn't look as though the lap is stringing together for the pink number 19 car. And for Gilbert Yates, well, he'll be more than pleased that it's 2 pole positions, but of course the task for him this afternoon will be to try and convert that pole into the race win, which he didn't quite manage yesterday.
Yeah, and obviously I'll do my best to go and have a chat to them to see how they're going to approach the race this afternoon, and we'll see if you should expect the cloud cover to slowly thin out as the day warms up. Hamandra Pillai out of the final corner. He's not improved through sector 1 or sector 2. He should still come through to take the checkered flag. Yes, he will. If he's confident in the lap, he's not abandoned it. Let's see what he can do. Breaks the beam, and do we get an improvement? So we do in terms of lap time. In terms of position, not so much, but a quarter of a second gained, and again that can be just what you need, a good confidence booster to carry into the race. Over the line, Peter Hunter. Does he improve? No, not this time.
No, so no improvement for him. Darren Howell out of the car. Jack Mitchell, his driver coach, with the headset on, busy chatting away. The next job will be to get the car back into the garage. It'll sit there for a short period of time in parc fermé conditions, and then there's all of the data to go through and the onboards to go through with the pros to try and see what you might be able to change and tweak in terms of your driving style for the race this afternoon. So every car now either having taken the checkered flag or has popped itself into the pit lane. Peter Hunter just now trickling his way round back in towards the pits at the end of his qualification session, and he will line up 4th in Copa Shell. So with the cars making their way back into the pit lane, why don't we head down to the pit lane ourselves and have a chat with Amanda Stretton.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Wasn't that a brilliant session? And I don't think it was really before 5 minutes before the end that we actually had an idea how it was going to pan out. But Gilbert Yates, many congratulations. Trofeo Pirelli, pole position winner for the 2nd time.
Yeah, thank you. It was good.
And here we go. There is your trophy. You've got quite a collection of these now.
Yeah, they're getting built up.
They're getting built up. OK, so listen, tell me a little bit about yesterday, about the race. Obviously, you started in pole position. Andrew was just relentless trying to get past you. What have you learnt and that you can carry forward to today?
I don't know if I want to tell you that, but yeah, I mean, the first 3 quarters of the race, I was pretty good, and Andrew we were holding the gap of like 1.5 seconds, 1 second, but Andrew closed in. He was pretty neat and tidy the whole race. My tyres went off so bad towards like 6 minutes to the end, and I just couldn't keep the car straight. It was so difficult.
I mean, it looked like you were very much at one with the car. You had the car dancing.
Yeah, at the start of the race, but after the last third of the race was very difficult to keep the car straight.
OK, so you've learnt lessons from yesterday about how to do this. Obviously, you're on pole position again, best place to start. How have you found Snetterton?
Snetterton's good. I like Snetterton well. I mean, it's a good fast track. It's technical in the centre part of the track, so you just have to get that right, because these tyres are very delicate, and if you overuse them, they won't be there at the end of the race. Well, listen, Gilbert, say you're starting in pole position. Many congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, so he will hope to convert that into the race win later on this afternoon. So let's confirm the qualifying times then. Gilbert Yates will start from pole position for round 6 of the 2024 Ferrari Challenge UK later on this afternoon. And Andrew Morrow, his main championship rival and teammate at Charleshurst, will line up alongside. Pranav Vangala will line up third ahead of Hemandra Pillai, who's there in 4th place. And the first of our Copa Shell drivers, Gary Redman, qualified 5th quickest, with Robert Rees there in 6th. And yesterday's race winner, Mike Dewhurst, in 7th. Peter Hunter, 8th. Steve Dobson was 9th, and Darren Howell will start 10th for round 6 of the championship later on this afternoon. So that's qualifying done and dusted. Let's look back, though, at some of the highlights from the session we've just seen. Well, it didn't take long for Pranav Vangala to head out onto circuit, but as ever, all of the main front runners in Trofeo Pirelli were out there and pushing in the early stages to try and set the lap time on what were initially scrubbed Pirelli tyres for most of them. They would split the session in 2 and come into the pit lane part the way through and bolt on a brand new set of Pirelli slicks. There was also good squabbles going on with the provisional pole position in Copa Shell bouncing around. Mike Dewhurst was on pole position for a short period of time. Darren Howell ventured back out onto the circuit, one of the first to swap onto his second set of tyres, and Andrew Morrow was pushing hard, briefly went to pole position, the race winner from yesterday. However, his first quick lap time was taken away because he'd gone beyond the circuit limits. There was a small mistake, outbraking himself out on circuit, Pranav Vangala, but he'll get his head back on again and would keep pushing on. But the man who would stand atop of the times in Copa Shell, the number 22 car of Gary Redman, and the number 11 of Gary Yates, qualified on pole in Trofeo Pirelli. And that's the qualifying highlights from today. So we look forward to doing it all again later on. We'll have round 6 of the championship coming up for you later on. So from everybody here at Snetterton, thanks for joining us for qualifying. We'll catch you later on for the race. Goodbye.